Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Wayne Stetski. I'll be your host this evening and I want to welcome you all to tonight's live and interactive telephone town hall discussion on changes to Canada's pensions. With me tonight is my colleague, pensions critic Scott Duval. If you have a question for me or Scott, just press *3 on your phone at any time. I'm very excited to be here with you. Right now, we are calling thousands of your neighbors from across Kootenay, Columbia. It will take a few minutes to connect with everyone, so as we are dialing out, let me take a moment to explain how a telephone town hall works. So right now, people from across Kootenay, Columbia are answering their phones and connecting to this discussion. In a way, this is like a traditional town hall, where guests arrive and file in through the front door. Except in place of a front door, there are thousands of phones ringing throughout Kootenay, Columbia. Once someone answers their phone, they just stay on the line to join this discussion. This telephone town hall technology enables us to reach out and talk with thousands of people from the comfort of their homes. It is a great way for me to stay connected with you and ensure that you hear from me directly, ask me questions live, and listen to the answers. For those of you just joining the call, because calls are still going out, welcome. This is a telephone town hall on changes to Canada's pensions. I'm Wayne Stetski, Member of Parliament for Kootenay, Columbia. I see we still have some more phones to call, so as we wait for everyone to join, I'd like to welcome my colleague, pensions critic Scott Duval, to the call and ask him to give a brief statement on the issue. Remember, if you have a question or comment, just press *3 on your phone at any time. Scott, welcome.
Thanks, Wayne, and I'd like to thank you and your staff for organizing this event. I think it's a very, very important issue that we're talking about pensions across Canada, what is happening, that people should be notified. To me, there's an attack on pensions, and it's a very critical issue as people want to make sure when they retire, they have a secured income, and some of that's not happening lately. So I'm open to any questions that you want to talk about on either old age security, Bill C-27, and especially the Bankruptcy Act where our pensions are being attacked.
Thank you, Scott. And you know, there's lots of concern right now around pensions across Canada at a number of different levels. Old age security is one. Of course, we hear from a number of people that are really struggling to make ends meet that are seniors, which really shouldn't be happening in a country like Canada. Also have a lot of concern for our youth. Many of them are working in jobs that pensions are not even part of their future at this point. And so I think we all need to be thinking about the future and about pensions 10, 20, 30 years from now. But tonight we're going to focus on a couple of bills that are of real importance to Canadians, but we will certainly allow people to and encourage people to talk about any aspect of pensions that they'd like to bring forward tonight. So as most of you know, our bankruptcy laws, Companies Creditors Arrangement Act, or CCAA, and Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act, the BIA, give priority to investors, banks, and parent companies over workers' pensions and benefits. Many Canadian companies use those unfair bankruptcy laws to effectively gain concessions from their employees and escape responsibility for often huge pension deficits they themselves have created. And we will also be discussing Bill C-27, which allows pensions to be rolled over from direct benefit plans into target benefit plans. And I know this has created a real stir across the country. There's been expressions and letters of concern sent into government from many different organizations, including the Council of Senior Citizens Organizations of British Columbia, the Federal Retirees Association, and altogether about 1 million members from the National Pensioners Federation have expressed their concern about Bill C-27. So C-27 affects employers in federally regulated businesses such as banking and railways as well as Crown corporations. For Kootenay, Columbia, this largely targets our workers with Canada Post, banks, telephone systems, Canadian Pacific, and Canadian National Railroads. As I mentioned earlier, joining me tonight is Scott Duval, a pension critic, who introduced a private members bill which will amend the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act and the Companies Creditors Arrangement Act to require companies to bring any pension plan fund to 100% before paying any secured creditors. In other words, people, the workers in these companies, need to come first. I'm really looking forward for your questions and comments because I want to know what you think. And Scott is here to help me answer your questions. So for those of you just joining us on the call, we are here tonight for a special telephone town hall discussion on changes to Canada's pensions. Tonight, you'll get a chance to ask your questions and share your thoughts through real time. If you have a question, just press *3 on your phone at any time. I would like to turn first to Scott Duval, pensions critic, to speak on his private members bill, Bill C-384. Scott.
So thanks, Wayne. So I just want to start off and explain to the people that pensions in Canada were based on 3 pillars, and that's the old age security, the guaranteed income supplement. Second pillar was the Canada Pension Plan, and the third pillar was private pension plans. It could be RSPs or defined benefit plan that you have paid into the company as deferred wages, and the company is supposed to look after that pension. What's been happening is CCAA, Companies Creditors Arrangement Act, when companies go into a bankruptcy protection, and that's for companies that are only in debt over $5 million, and they need some kind of relief not to liquidate, but they're looking for some type of time where they can actually get themselves out and look for new borrowers, extend their debt payments to some people. But when they go into that type of protection, what happens is our pensions are, most of the pensions now are in a deficit. And the company, when they go into CCAA, will ask the court to suspend any kind of future payments until they find out that they can get some type of agreement with other debt holders. And our pensions are at risk. And so why I say that is shareholders and bondholders will get their money first. If the company cannot get a plan and the plan has to wind up, what will happen is if the plan is only 80% funded, the person will only get 80 cents on the dollar. We find that not proper, and the reason why is that it's getting bolder and bolder and bolder as we go along, where we've had Stelco, which I witnessed in CCAA, Nortel, we have Stelco and U.S. Steel, but it was Sears Canada. And what is happening is companies are now paying, selling some of their assets when they're in debt, paying off their shareholders dividends, while leaving a big, huge deficit in the pensions. So in a case like Sears, there was no money left over. So these people are now, that were depending on their pensions for their future, now have to take a cut. And that's because they're on the low of the totem pole of the priority list when it comes down to selling the assets and who gets the money first. What my bill does is actually puts the pensioners up as a priority, super priority, that they will get the pensions first and other people will come after that. There's all kinds of arguments that we won't get the lenders and the sky will fall, but how can you do that when billions were paid out in the Sears Canada to dividend holders, leaving the people with their pensions that were deferred wages into a hole? So some people got rich, and the people that worked there all their lives got to have a cut in their pensions.
So Sears are the most recent example, but really this problem has been in place in Canada for well over a decade. Yes. I mean, the law started in 1927. It worked to help out companies that were in deep distress, but it was very, very seldomly used. But in the 80s and 90s, it got to be used more.
And the reason for that, back in the 1927s, nobody had benefits. But it's easy pickings here now when companies go into debt, that sometimes they plan on doing this, and as we've seen in the Sears, and it's under investigation, we have to put a stop to this because too many companies are using this law to get out of their liabilities that they owe, that they're responsible for.
Right, thank you for that explanation. And of course, C-27 is also of concern to many, many Canadians right now. So can you just give us a sort of a capsule version of what the impact of C-27 is on pensions?
Sure. So C-27 is a bill that's been introduced by our government, our finance minister, who to me has a conflict of interest, but it basically it attacks defined benefit plans, which is defined benefits are a secured pension where the company takes all the liability, it takes your amount of your deferred wages and invests that money, and then any kind of a shortfall the company would look after. The problem that we have now is this bill C-27. It's to go after the federal institutions, but it can spread into the private pension plans. And what Bill C-27 does, it's called a target plan, where amount of money is negotiated to find out how much the pension that you want to have. You pay a premium, and any kind of fallback, the company is now not liable, it's the pensioner. So the pensioner, there's no stability for the pensioner. What will happen is if the pension goes into a deficit and there's an actuarial report every year, the people might pay a higher premium, or they could take a lower benefit plan, or they can do both, and it's retroactive. The worst thing about Bill C-27 is our Prime Minister now, before he was Prime Minister, even stated that this should not happen. It should not be retroactive, and he kind of guaranteed to the people, but the bill does the opposite.
All right, thank you for that. So before I open the line to questions, which will be in just a minute, I have a question for all of you. And please be aware that any information you may choose to provide will only be used for the question that's being asked tonight, namely to better understand your views on the issue of possible changes to Canada's pension system. So I'll be asking you 3 questions tonight and asking you to use your phones to provide information. So here's your chance to vote in a live poll and hear the results later in the call. So for all of you on the phone, the question is, do you have a private pension? Press 1 on your phone if you do have a private pension. Press 2 on your phone if you do not have a private pension. Press 3 on your phone if you don't know if your pension is private or not. So let me say that again quickly. Press 1 on your phone if you do have a private pension. 2 if you do not have a private pension, and 3 if you're not sure, and I'll present the results later in the call. So lots of people eager to ask a question, and for those of you just joining the call, welcome to our telephone town hall. If you have a question, just press *3 on your phone to get in line to ask it. So our first question this evening is from Bonnie from Nelson. Bonnie.
Hello. I don't have a private pension, but I'm concerned that I have a public pension right now I'm on. I'm not worried about that so much. I am concerned, as you were speaking before, about the private companies that get away with going bankrupt and being allowed to put the pensioners on the bottom of the barrel in terms of getting their pensions because they underfund them. And I wonder if we are government, if we have the power and the nerve to actually change the rules around how these companies operate so that they can't do this. And of course that previous caller was talking about that very thing. So that's my concern, and of course I'm concerned about my pension now, but not that much.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And absolutely, our intention through Bill C-384 is to try and ensure that in future pensions and pensioners come first when a company goes bankrupt rather than at the end of the line. It just does not seem right at all in a country like Canada where that shareholders, CEOs, all those people get paid before pensioners get paid. So Scott's bill, which is Bill C-384, is meant to turn that around completely and make sure that pensions come first if there's a bankruptcy. Thank you for that. And so our next question is coming from Renee from Golden. Renee. Renee, are you there? All right, I'm not hearing Renee, so let's move to William from just north of Preston.
Hello, sorry, it's Renee here.
Oh, okay. Hi, Renee.
The company that I worked for before I retired used to receive, sorry, I'll move away from that phone, used to receive statements saying that the pension was 80% funded, and so the company had to send so much money in order to fund the pension fully. So what's happened to that rule?
So, Scott, so Renee, what you're talking about is an actuarial report where the companies are obligated to whatever province they live in, they abide by those regulations. And when there's a certain percentage that they're underfunded, and I'll just say, for instance, in Ontario, and I believe it's 82% or 83%, then the company is then called in to say, all right, how are you going to make these extra payments at the deficit? So they call a special payment. So they make the regular payments, and then whatever's happening, they got to make special payments. And it's usually those special payments take 5 years. But the problem we're having and with the CCAA is that pensions are regulated by the province and territories. But when the companies enter to CCAA, those rules by the provinces have are overridden by the CCAA law. So it's like the wild, wild west. There is no really any kind of rules. They're being made up as they go along to try to get the company back on its feet. So in Ontario, we're having a problem because they're saying if it's 85%, or they're aiming at 85% of funding would be a natural thing. We believe that's wrong. We believe the company shouldn't get that type of a break. It should be 100% funded. But sometimes it goes lower. It could go lower. It could go higher. It could be overfunded. But in the last 10 years, the more the market's gone and the interest, companies seem to be having more difficulties being into a deficit, and how do they pay up that extra money?
Thank you for your question. Let's go straight to our next question. We want to get in as many as possible this evening. So, William from north of Preston.
I've already talked to you.
All right, thank you. So then we'll go to Robert from Revelstoke.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I sure can. Good evening, Robert.
Good evening, Mr. Anyway, I'm part of a DV plan right now. CP has told me that the TPP will not affect the DV plan of CP because it's solvent. Does anywhere in this bill say that we have to go to a TPP? From what I understand, it has to be voted on by everyone in the pension plan before it can even do that.
So great question, Robert. So how the legislation is written, it'll go to federally regulated companies. So it gives them the opportunity to approach and if you're unionized, that the union has to say yes or no.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, but the problem that we're having is if the legislation goes through, what will happen is that they can do it. Even if the union says no, they can say, okay, the company will come and say, we're going to give you a certain amount of extra dollars for your health care. They'll wave carrots in front of you, or they could lock you out. or make it a big negotiating item to make sure that it tries to go to a target benefit plan. And then you have, the young people and the old people go against each other. Why are they on strike? Why are they being locked out or whatever? It's not the legislation is not needed. I mean, the options are there already. Why do you have to legislate it? So what are they up to? Why are they trying to force this into federally regulated bodies? Even though they have to have permission, to me, the smell test doesn't take it.
Exactly, and that's what Mr. Morneau is trying to do, is to let the companies kind of do what they want with your pension. And with our pension, we got 22,000 people on pension, and about 14,000 still working. And we've been told by the company numerous times. I go to a pension board meeting once a month, and I ask the same question every month. Are we still in the DB plan? Yes, we are, and we're not moving.
Yes, and that's so true. And so one of the reasons why we're asking Mr. Morneau is, it was quietly introduced. I believe, it's, they're going after Canada Post, the big deficit. And, what are their plans in the future to either try to force the people to take it, and then it can spread into the private companies. But what they're saying now, because there's so much pressure, it's an option. So if it's an option, companies can voluntarily do it, like CP, but you don't have to have this into legislation.
Exactly, and I applaud you for putting in this other bill. There's got to be some protection for the people that build these companies, not the people who think they're bosses. And it's got to be reversed. I agree with you 100%, and all the power to you to get it. You got my vote.
Thank you, Robert. A lot of great railroaders in Revelstoke, for sure.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Thank you. And we're going to move on to Mary from Trail. Hello, Mary.
Hello?
Hi, Mary.
Can you hear me?
We sure can.
My question is regarding people with disabilities having to apply for their CPP or CPP disability when they're 60, and then it's deducted off our disability check. So not only are we losing that 5-year time there, but we also lose money off our disability check. And I was wondering if there was, I'm not even sure if this is the correct question for this forum, but if it is, maybe you can look into that or let us know.
Sure, Mary. So thank you for the question. I'm not aware if anybody's being forced at 60. That could be. And it could be for the reason of it's money coming to you, the Canada Pension Plan, so they want to make sure that the money that's going to you is earned income, and you should be taking that, and that'll count as income, not to be giving you other types of money. But and then after the disability at 65, you go back to your normal pension. So a lot of people that are on disability Canada Pension Plan receive more money than normally up to the age of 65, and then after 65, it goes to a normal pension. So, but I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but I can get you more information on it.
Yeah, Mary, one of the things that we plan to do with the questions and the answers this evening is, if we can't provide answers tonight, we will get the answer, and then I will post a report on my website afterwards of questions and answers. It'll be available there.
So simply put, if you're on PWD and you're 60 years old, you have to apply for CPP or your CPP disability, accept the amount that comes, which for me is only $90 because I'm not entitled to a full CPP, and that is deducted directly off our disability check. That's the bottom line. That's the way it works.
That seems totally unfair, Mary.
You're forced to apply. Yeah, I know. We know that, but for some reason it's legal.
We'll follow up on it for you.
Thank.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll go to Bruce from Fairmont, please. Are you there, Bruce?
Yeah, hello, how are you? Hi,
Ted,
how are you?
Steve?
I'm good. Quite timely. Scott, I think, just mentioned the fact about Canada Post and their pension. I am a pensioner from Canada Post. I've retired since January of 2015. I'm enjoying my defined benefit pension. And now I saw with this sneaky and immoral introduction of Bill C-27 that my pension may be threatened. So I'm a little bit angry about this whole idea. And what I would like to know is, first and foremost, do you, as members of Parliament, know what the government's intention is? Because I think they've sort of left it on the order books and they're not really kind of proceeding with this because maybe of all the, the backlash against it. But if they are going to proceed with it, what will be our, course of action to defeat it or to stand up against it?
And I'll answer the first part of that, I guess. It's really interesting to me because apparently the Conservatives introduced a similar kind of bill when they were in power, but Canadians pointed out to them very clearly that they were not in favor of this, and the Conservatives actually withdrew their legislation. So somewhat surprised that the Liberals brought it back. And Scott, what are your thoughts on where this might go and what Canadians can do to help make sure it doesn't proceed?
And I thank you for that, Wayne. And Bruce, a very good point, and that's what we're wondering. When the bill was, as Wayne alluded to, first introduced, or they were talking about it with the Conservatives, the backlash was so unbelievable, they walked away from it. But when the Liberals came into power, there was no ever indication that this was going to happen. It was just quietly done on this big stack of papers, and we wondered why the bill was hidden and what they were up to, so it was bringing it back. But then we found out that Mr. Morneau, who owns the company of Chappelle Morneau, there was a conflict of interest, and so his company could make money off of this. In fact, they did. The shares went up, unbelievable. So what they're trying to do is get rid of a deficit of over $800 million. And I think if you know, Bruce, when they locked you out the last time, and the issue was over pensions, and it was an outstanding issue, and then it was like 2 or 3 years for the two parties to get back together. This is my personal thought, that this is to come after the deficit to see if they can wipe it out. Now, there has to be an agreement somehow, but you never know what's going to happen. There could be another lockout, there could be another strike, there could be legislation that forces it, which I don't know. The bill was so ambiguous what it means, and that's what we're afraid of.
Yeah, if I could just interject for a sec here. So I am retired. I'm a pensioner. I'm receiving my pension every month. I went to pre-retirement seminars leading up to my retirement in 2015, and it was conducted by a financial advisor who was not an employee of Canada Post. He was a third-party individual who ran these seminars, and he assured all of us there that there was absolutely no way that our pension could ever be touched because it was guaranteed by the Government of Canada, because we're civil servants. And, I don't want to get into an argument with the private sector and how they always, the government's always, divide and conquer everyone from public to private and say, oh, look at those public servants, they get too many benefits, they shouldn't have it. No, actually everybody should have it. That's the way that this world should work. However, that isn't the way that it is. But what I'm saying is that if they are trying to steal my pension from me, I worked over 32 years for them. 15 of those years, I also worked a second job. I was a letter carrier. I was a front-line worker. I was not a middle manager. I was not one of the higher-end people. Canada Post is so top-heavy, it's unbelievable. And I'm sure both you, Wayne and Scott, know of this. There's how many? Over 20 vice presidents that work at Canada Post that are all paid in six-figure salaries with their benefits. And what is their pension plan? So, I mean, to go after frontline blue-collar workers And as far as Bill Morneau is concerned, anybody who does any minor research on this man understands he came from the C.D. Howe Institute, a neoconservative, ultra-right-wing think tank that only cares about rich, entitled people.
So I think, Bruce, I think what I'm trying to explain to you in short, okay, Bill C-27 invites employers and other plan sponsors to abandon their pension promises to employees and retirees. So it's basically downloading virtually all the plan risk brought on by the market and from employers to workers and retirees. It's an unconscionable betrayal of the legal rights and protections of the plan members. That's what it means to do.
Thank you, Bruce. And we have lots of great questions lined up this evening, so we're going to have to move on. So let's go to Teresa next from Nelson. Good evening, Teresa. Hello, Teresa, are you there? All right, we're not hearing from Teresa, so we're going to move on to Duncan from Creston. Duncan, are you there this evening?
That the current government just slid this thing in under the table very quietly, sort of brought it to everybody's appreciation quietly, under the carpet type of thing. My question is, possibly for a large company creditor, they can go in there and they can tell these large companies to just hold back the payments to the pensioners so that we can get remuneration from you guys first before the pensioners. They're wealthy people compared to the pensioners. They're horribly wealthy. And if they can postpone pension payments to get time to restructure, my question is, how long can this go on for at the pensioner's expense?
So great question. I can tell you from experience in the Stelco issue back in 2004, we were in CCAA for almost 2 years. So they were on an ongoing basis. The pension was okay, but if it had to be wound up, we were in serious trouble. But it all depends on how long the restructuring goes for. If you look at what's happening in Sault Ste. Marie, it's been almost 3 years. When you looked at the Sears, it was very short and sweet. And they just wanted to liquidate. It was a planned, to me, it was a planned bankruptcy. But the way the law is written, the judge has the right to extend as long as they want, as long as the company is trying to make arrangements to get out of bankruptcy protection. So it could happen for 2 years, it could happen for 3 years. But what's happening in the Stelco one, when they suspended the payments, the money was still, pensioners were still getting their money, so the money was coming out of the pot, but there was no money going in, so it was like a vacuum cleaner, a big funnel. And so you get into a bigger deficit, and it's harder for people to buy that or buy into that liability, and that's the problem.
All right, thank you for that. What I'm going to do now is move to another polling question, and at the end of the hour, I will give the results of all 3 of the polls. So this is for all of you on the line this evening. Here's your chance to vote, and then hear the answer later. So the question is, this one should be an easy one, actually. Do you think that workers' pensions should be paid out ahead of executive bonuses? Press 1 on your phone if you agree. Press 2 on your phone if you disagree. Press 3 on your phone if you're unsure. So let me say that again. Press 1 on your phone if you agree workers' pensions should be paid out ahead of executive bonuses. Press 2 if you disagree, and press 3 if you're unsure. So take a moment to do that, and then we're going to go to James from Cranbrook. James?
Hello.
Hi, how are you this evening?
Not bad. I'm just curious, like, why is there no way that we can go after the shareholders, the investors that are investing in these companies that are so poorly managed? I mean, you know, if any company, any business that's running, you put the lights on and you don't pay the bill, they turn the power off, right? So it's just proper management, right? And those are the first rights in there, you know, the workers, the pensions, everything else are all first rights. And then bonuses, which you just asked, and things like being able to not make the pension payments. I watched the Elk Valley here for the last 45 years go up and down because of the pensions that were stolen by the social credit liberal governments of BC. Why the heck is it that we can't put something in place to sort of make these investors think before they act, and make sure the company is acting responsibly first?
So James, that's exactly what my bill was trying to do, because the shareholders, they're up there as a secured creditor, and the pensioners, any kind of deficit in the pensions, they call it an unsecured creditor. I am trying to make us reverse that we get paid before the shareholders, and because the reason why for that, shareholders they invested their money and it's a risk. We know that. They know that. But workers did not go to work to risk their type of income. So it's exactly what my bill is trying to do. It's trying to put the workers back on top before shareholders are being paid out or any kind of bonus money.
Okay.
All right, thank you. And now we're going to go to Pete from Creston.
How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Oh, not too bad. I got 3 questions for you people. First of all, I'd like to bring to your attention that this carbon tax is killing us pensioners. We pay a 14% carbon tax and then on the product, and then we go and we pay a provincial and federal tax. Our carbon tax is killing us with the power, and on a fixed income it's difficult to make ends meet. So you were talking about personal pensions. I put a fair amount of money in my personal pension, and due to the economic growth of last year, I lost $13,000. When I phoned up Mr. No Money to the Middle Class, after a long period of time, I got the same responses I just explained to you. Yet, in November, when he cashed in his shares, he sure made a fair amount of money. That makes me feel a little bit put out. I'd like to bring to your attention, in 2008, the Honorable Mr. Jim Flaherty took $6 billion out of Canada Pension and gave it to the auto industry. Now, I'm having a hard time understanding that the $190,000 and the land taxes that I paid and a third of my wage to the government, how come I'm being treated like a third world individual? Does that make sense?
Kind of, yeah. No, on the carbon tax, I mean, that's kind of different. That's like any taxes. All pensioners are affected, and it's hard to make ends meet. So, but when it comes down to the pension itself, and I understand you didn't have a private plan, but you had some RSPs, I guess you were investing in, and you got hit by the market. What we're saying is on the defined benefit plans, the companies have to pay the money. They cannot allow these, and I'll use Sears as a great example, because when the dividends were paid, they paid out billions of dollars in dividends. They were selling the assets, and they were not making a profit, and they were not putting it into the pension fund. They give it to the shareholders. If you look at the Royal Banks right now, under the existing law, I mean, you can read the papers. They're making billions in profit. Why do they have a deficit in the pension? It's not right. These companies are taking advantage of a system that has to change, and the workers should become first before all other people. These are deferred wages, and pensioners should be able to rely on what they invested in, just like you like to.
Thanks, Pete. Good to hear from you. Next up, we have Jennifer from Harrop. How are things in Harrop tonight?
Not too bad. The ferry's working.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, it goes off and on. Anyways, I just was wondering, I came into this a little bit late, but how is the Canada Pension Plan and Old Age Security affected by this?
It is not, Jennifer. The old age pension will remain the same. The Canada pension remains the same, whatever the rules are. This is basically, when it comes down to the Bankruptcy Act, it is about pensions that are private. So any existing money that come off of your paycheck on a bankruptcy protection, say in the Canada pension, has to be paid up to the government, so that money goes in. And then you have your old age security. So this is from private pensions that people invested in and been cheated.
Oh, right.
Thank you. We certainly hear from a lot of seniors, concerned that the OAS that they're getting is not enough to get by on. So that's another aspect of pensions that I think we all need to stay focused on going ahead, along with the GIS supplement, guaranteed income supplement. I'm going to go to the third poll question now, and then I can make sure I get all three in, and I can give you the results at the end. So before we move to our next question, which will be the Myrna from Kimberley, I'd like you to all be ready to go to your phones, and the question is, should our laws do more to protect workers' retirement benefits? Press 1 on your phone if you agree, press 2 if you disagree, and press 3 if you are unsure. So let me say that again. Press 1 on your phone if you agree our laws should do more to protect workers' retirement benefits. Press 2 if you disagree, press 3 if you are unsure, and we'll have the results from all three polls in just a few minutes. So now we're going to go to Myrna from Kimberley. Welcome.
Hello?
Hi, Myrna. How are you tonight?
Oh, I'm all right. I guess my question that I tried to put across to the other fellow was, I, for example, am one of these people who kind of sailed through a lot of my working life by the seat of my pants. I wound up with bits of jobs here, bits of jobs there, things that very often didn't last. When it right comes down to it, we're having people coming into the country that are being treated better in the workplace than I could ever have been and or will be. And I'm not 65 yet, but I'm in between. I am on a bit of a disability thing, but it doesn't cover a great deal. My question is that if I'm able to go to work at this stage in the game and get some sort of an extra work of something that I am able to do, how will that affect my pension down the line, and also the little bit of funds that I have in the like a TFSA and RSP thing, will I be docked on extra taxes or extra, like, will I be sort of what's the word? I'm not sure what the word is. Don't want to use punish. That's not quite right. But will I be lacking? Will I be
penalized?
Yeah, I guess penalized. Yeah, that's the word. That's the word I'm looking for. On my other little bits of investments and or my further pension down the line, because of trying to do extra work.
So, Maria, what I get out of it is that you're doing some small jobs, and You don't pay into the Canada Pension Plan? Is that correct? Myrna?
On some of them I did.
Okay.
But some of them I did. Some of them I guess I didn't. I don't know. Some things I guess I did. Some things I guess I didn't. It depended on what. I think that when I was, working for actual companies, I probably did. There was a few little even lesser jobs that I did on my own, where I wasn't able. I was just basically kind of. It was so little that it's not even worth the bother, kind of thing, to.
Well, on Canada Pension, if you paid into the plan when you turn the age of 65, you'll be entitled to something. It might be very small, but it doesn't affect even in the future of being penalized. I mean, it might even help you to get into an increase, because you can pay in the Canada Pension even though you collect it to ask to get some more money. But if I'm reading you right, are you asking, will you be penalized for making any more money on the existing pension that you may be on old age or on the Canada Pension? You won't be penalized. But if you do collect a guaranteed income supplement, that is based on your income. And I think if you're single, it's around $17,000. That's the threshold. So if you make over that, you won't get any kind of guaranteed income supplement. If you make under that, you're entitled to something. Does that answer your question?
Scale depending on how much I'm making. Is that what you're saying?
Right. There's a threshold there, yes.
And it's a sliding scale how much I'm making depending on even under the 17,000. It's still a sliding scale.
You're right. It's prorated, so if you make $10,000, you'll get more of a guaranteed income supplement. If you made $14,000, you won't get as much as you would if you only made $10,000. And then,
goofy.
And after
kind of
17,
goofy when you. I say, which is kind of goofy when you're dealing with a situation where a person's not really getting very much pension in the first place, and then in a situation of disability where somewhere down the line there's a very strong likelihood that what other bit of reserve that you were operating with will have to go into providing us in some sort of facility where we're being looked after and that sort of thing. And as it stands, I know of people whom are missing are needing to be in other facilities, and I don't know what kind of work necessarily that they are making or they've had, but they're missing the threshold of what is required by those facilities by a couple of grand a month in that neighborhood. So they may be pulling in like 13,000 or something a month, and the requirement is in the neighborhood of 15,000, and that, of course, that's going to go up more likely than it's going to go down. The other thing is, well, there was another question that I had about that, and I can't remember what that was, but at the moment.
Appreciate you calling in. We're going to try and get in 2 or 3 more calls here before the evening's out, but thank you very much for taking the time. We're going to go to Angela from Nelson. Angela?
Hi, Wayne. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. So my question has been answered. I was concerned that it would these bills would affect federal superannuates. I'm on a widow's benefit, but it doesn't sound like it will. Correct?
Well, it won't affect. I mean, whatever the pension plan that you have, if it's 70% that the widow gets or the widower, then that would remain the same. It's whatever the pension is going to be. So, and I'm just saying hypothetically, just say you were getting $2,000 a month guaranteed now, and if it went to Bill C-27 and you went to the target benefit plan, and that $2,000, if it didn't hit that target, in a couple of years it might be reduced to, say, $1,850, and then you would get 70% of that $1,850.
Well, that's
exactly, and that's the whole thing. I mean, all the liability goes to the pensioner and not to the actual company, and that's why they're trying to introduce this. It takes away any kind of liability to them, and the only one that makes money off of this is the actuarial reports, where one gets done every year. It's very costly, but you just have to make sure that whatever plan they're in, there's a board of directors that make sure that they invest properly. But yes, you could take a cut, but the plan won't. If it's 70%, they don't go to 65. It's 70% of what you're receiving, or what you're gonna receive.
But I could still lose.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And Wayne, will you have on your website, ways we can help you guys fight these?
Absolutely, and we'll talk about it just quickly in our summary, and I think we only have about 5 minutes left, so unfortunately we're going to run out of time, but I would ask everyone that has a question to contact me by emailing your question to my parliamentary email address, which is wayne.stetsky@PARL, short for parliament.gc.ca, and we'll follow up on all of your questions and get answers to them. Just want to quickly give the results of the 3 polls that we had this evening. The first one was on whether or not you had a private pension. 41% of the people on the line have a private pension, 43% did not, and 16% weren't sure. Do you think that workers' pension should be paid out ahead of executive bonuses? And 93% agreed with that, 2% disagreed, and 5% were unsure. And for the third poll, should our laws do more to protect workers' retirement benefits? 98% of you said you agreed with that, 1% disagreed, and 1% was not sure. So I really appreciate all of you taking the time to be here this evening. I think about 33,000 phones ring around the riding when we do a telephone town hall, and 4,675 of you took the time to be with us for the entire hour. So we really, really appreciate that very much. So, Scott, you have some closing remarks, and then I'll finish up here in the minute or two we have left.
I just want to say thank you, and I really want to thank the people that are involved in this call tonight, and I really want to make you aware of the seriousness of this issue. We have to stop it. We have to change the law. It's been on too long. Where people are taking advantage. So, and if they have any questions, as you say, Wayne, you can always go to Wayne's office, and you can contact me. I have a website to end pension theft, and we'd be more than happy to help out wherever possible.
Okay, so again, your website is called
End Pension Theft.
End Pension Theft. So thank you very much, Scott. Really appreciate you being here, and really appreciate your leadership. Scott has been out across Canada, and he's going to continue his tour around the country, bringing awareness to what's happening with the 2 bills in front of us, and to listen to concerns about pensions in general. So thank you, everyone. It's really great listening to your thoughts and your questions that you took the time to share with us this evening. I appreciate every one of you, whether you asked a question or just stayed on the call. So thank you very much for being with us. Have a great evening, and don't forget you can send in your questions to wayne.stetsky@parl.gc.ca, and we will post the answers on the website along with tonight's town hall. Actually, will be on there as well. Thanks very much. Have a great evening.